Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I really enjoyed that conversation with Bobby Cole from Mossy Oak. We'll have him back. I enjoyed visiting with him, not only on the air, but off the air. And the fact that he's been with Mossy Oak for so long, this really incredibly important company to the outdoors community, not just in Mississippi, but for our nation. And the role that all of them play when they leave the state to be an ambassador for the state, I can't overstate how important that is. And, we'll look forward to having Bobby back more than once. I also enjoy having Cuz on Cuz and I have become good buddies. Cuz Strickland, he's really a phenomenally important person and personality to the conservation community in America. And that's what Super Talk Outdoors is all about, connecting with people like that. And with that said, connecting with people like my next guest, William McKinley, who's head of the deer program for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. He's become a good friend, someone I've really enjoyed visiting with. And his work is so important. The work that he and other people in his similar positions across the state and what they do to learn from each other, we're able to bring back here to Mississippi to make deer hunting in Mississippi the best it can possibly be. Anyway, William, with that said, it's good to see you, my friend.
It's good to be here, Ricky. Thank you for that intro.
You bet. So, man, look, you heard us talking about the drought. That's got to be the hottest topic in your world these days. What's your thoughts on it?
I tell you, I've been on now for a little over 2 decades. I remember the drought of 2010 being bad, but I don't remember it being this bad. And I'm looking at ponds around that are drying up. I'm hearing of a report from one guy who's really keeping up with his rainfall down in Wilkinson County, saying that he's observed 0.17 inches of rain in the past 99 days. So the drought is having an impact on deer herd health. There's no doubt about that. We have a really high deer density in the state of Mississippi, possibly higher now than it's ever been in history. And, well, the drought's hurting them, Ricky. But deer season is upon us. Cool weather. It's a completely different feel out there today. And I looked at the radar a few minutes ago, and that mass of rain doesn't look like a lot, but man, it's some. It's inching its way down right now. So times are a-changing.
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, I think, you see a couple of yellow patches in that darker green. It's forecast to be about 1/10 of an inch, not nearly enough. Yeah. But look, we're not complaining. We'll take whatever we get. As I mentioned in the last segment, my farmer friend Travis Dunn referred to it as baby powder in the Mississippi Delta. I mean, it's just been so dry for so long. It is just dust everywhere. And this will knock it down for a little bit, maybe half a day. And then it's going to dry. There's just this giant sucking sound in the ground when you get 1/10 of an inch of rain. But it might help some food plots that have germinated come up and maybe keep them up for a little bit longer. Is that kind of what your thoughts are as well?
It is. And, we've got cooler temps now. So those high 80s, low 90s, they're out of the forecast finally. And it's time. I mean, our average first freeze here in where I live in north central Mississippi is around November 1. And it's looking like that's exactly on cue. We just didn't expect it to go from 90 to freezing in a day and a half. But food plots, they're struggling if they are germinated at all. But any little bit of rain will help the ones that are germinated to keep holding on. And I did see there's a little more rain in the forecast for next week. So,
hey, listen, I joked with Cuz Strickland last week that we're going to change the name of his podcast from Fistful of Dirt to A Fistful of Morning Dew. But so we're not even, you look at the forecast on rain, and oftentimes you're not even praying for rain. You're just praying for a thicker morning dew than you would normally get, because if you've got germinated food plots, that might be enough. If you get it, as long as you get that every morning to kind of keep things moving. But, I think once we're getting cooler now, we're going to, when it starts to rain, it's going to rain, at least based on the forecast. It may not replace what we've lost. Still may have drought conditions, but it's supposed to be a cooler, wetter winter, and I'm assuming that that's still going to hold, and food plots that survive will eventually be. And we haven't even put fertilizer down on ours yet. I mean, we're trying to time that with good rain. Some of our plots are not even up yet, so we want them to be up a little bit before we go in there with some fertilizer. But now that we're getting this rain today, we'll be really watching to see if we can time the next rain with what's going to be a major undertaking to get fertilizer out. But hey, if we'd have put the fertilizer out, we'd have been waste of it. The sun would have absolutely just made it ineffective.
That's correct.
Everybody's thinking about that, aren't they?
They are. And but as we look forward, I mentioned earlier on the deer population, and I want to dwell on that just a minute, because we use a method called population reconstruction. We look at how many deer are out there based on what's been harvested and the age structure of those. So in a nutshell, if we killed a 4-year-old doe this year, she had to be alive the past 4 years. So you go backwards on to estimate the population. Well, when we get that population estimate, I've looked at since the 70s, and we look at the total harvest. So we do a survey of hunters every year to find out what the total kill was. That total kill on the population, it seems that 21 to 22% is the sweet spot to keep a population level on the Mississippi deer herd. So if we have 1 million deer, we need to take out about 21 to 22% of that deer herd, and it'll be right at 1 million deer again. Now, that doesn't mean on an individual property. We're looking at a statewide whole. Well, a few years back, we fell all the way down to 14% of the population being harvested. So that has led the herd to increase, and that's the reason we're coming out now with our numbers are showing higher deer population, and we're asking hunters to, within your bag limit, most hunters are shooting less than 2 deer a year. Yeah. That's the average hunter. So those hunters who are not reaching their bag limit, we want them to add another deer. We want them to shoot 1 more deer if you're not reaching your bag limit for where you hunt. And we want to get that to around 23, 24% of the population for a year to bring this herd back down just a little. And that leaves more resources out there for the deer that are left. And let's face it, this drought has caused a shortage of resources right now. So we need fewer deer depending on that.
It's interesting. Some of the, we're running a camera survey now, and, one farm, we've got to take 20, 30 deer out. We just know we got to do that. I mean, it's a real problem. Another one, we need to take 15 or 20 out. For the most part, the deer look healthy, but it seems like we have a few more than normal that seem skinny. Mm-hmm. Are you seeing that as well?
We sure are. And so you're talking about Northwest Mississippi, right?
Well, it's kind of the Delta. So around the Delta. Yeah.
So a lot of ag there. As we get into more wooded environments, more woods down in Southwest, for instance, we're seeing a bigger impact to drought. I'm getting a lot of pictures where the majority of the deer in the pictures look skinny. So it's definitely variable across the state. North Mississippi got a lot of rains that we didn't get in the rest of the state. They're looking a little better up there, looking a lot better actually. Yeah. But certain areas, it's going to be very site specific. But as a deer biologist for my career, I've encouraged people to manage a deer herd below carrying capacity, and it's because of years like this. That if we had when you have fewer deer on a property and they're not eating up all the resources on a good year, then on a bad year, you still have enough resources to support those deer.
Hey, listen, if you have let's say the browse is down for whatever reason, maybe because of the lack of rain, and let's say you have some water source nearby, but you've got a lot of acorns on the ground. Is that enough to sustain the situation?
Acorns are so important where they're present. So on a year like this, they're adding those fats and those carbs in that deer are needing. So about this time of the year, a physiological process happens in a deer's body where they start putting on fat, and almost everything they eat goes to fat, and those acorns really contribute to that, and they help a lot.
Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue this conversation about the drought and the impact on deer in Mississippi, and what William McKinley, head of the deer program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, thinks what the impact will be on next year and the year after that. So it's not just the year you're in that there may be an impact. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. I have my friend William McKinley, who's head of the deer program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. And when we went to break, we're talking about the drought conditions in Mississippi that are historic. It's just quite incredible. Even though we're getting some rain as we speak, not nearly enough. We need inches and inches and inches before we would not be in a bad situation. And to some extent, damage may have already been done to some extent. And we'll talk about what maybe the prolonged reverberation of a drought would be on the deer herd going forward in the next couple of years. And I want to talk about that. But before we get there, what's interesting is that some bottoms where we had water that was holding for, even in poor rain conditions, we'd still have water in some of those. We were doing some tree trimming the other day, and man, there's no water in areas. I mean, like entire areas that held tremendous amount of water. It's like dry as a bone, and the soil is cracking. And one of them in particular, my friend Jake Carter and I almost fell in it, but it's right off the bank. This whole bottom is dry, but there's one hole. Maybe years ago they might have taken a slug of dirt out with a backhoe or something, but it's holding water right there, just in that little hole. And again, we almost both fell in the darn thing, but deer have been coming to it and drinking from it. So it makes me think that it might have been the only water anywhere near there, actually. Water plays a huge role in this overall. It's not just food and acorn and browse and all that, but water is playing a big role in this, isn't it?
It is, Ricky. Typically in our climate, water is not a limiting source, and bucks typically, even during the late summer, fall, they're only drinking every 2 or 3 days. Now, a doe that's lactating, when she's got a fawn, she's got to drink more often because that fawn's taking it right back out of her through milk. But those bucks this year, there's not as much moisture in the vegetation in their diet. So they're having to go to water sources more, and water sources are more limited. And it's more so concentrating deer to those water sources, making them seek them out that they normally, for one, wouldn't even have had to look for them because they wouldn't have been limited. And number two, they would have got it from the vegetation.
Yeah, that is so interesting. So a deer that's a year or two old, you can talk about how they have at least an opportunity to recover in the years to come. But a fawn that's born now, what's the impact going to be on a fawn?
So, Ricky, we can look back at bad environmental years, and you can see both the fawns born that year and the 1-year-old bucks from that year, 1-year-old bucks and does. Those two cohorts, that's what we call a group of deer of the same age. So the fawns born in the summer of 2023 is the 23 cohort. We can watch them over time as they grow, and they typically, that impact from early in life will have an impact. You'll be able to see it even when they're mature, in lesser body weights and lesser antler size. That impact on those cohorts carries through. Now, you can make better habitat conditions and tend to cover up a little bit of that impact. So it's going to be that more important that habitat managers are doing really good habitat work in the years to come to try to improve that cohort, because it's already starting out. It's starting out with already behind.
Ooh, that's so interesting. You already have a bit of an indication of that, because when we talked about the genetics of deer in Mississippi are basically the same, and you can look at sort of generational nutrition to really determine what the impact's going to be. And I would, that same kind of thing, whatever that is applying to a drought condition, isn't it?
It is. So we can take deer in the Delta versus deer in Southeast Mississippi, and you go back to that Mississippi State University study where all those does from different parts of the state, the hills, the Delta, and the southeastern, the lower coastal plain were captured. They were allowed to fawn, and then those fawns were grown up on equal nutrition. After 2 generations, those fawns in the southeast were producing antlers the size of the Delta deer. So now it shows that we were dealing with nutrition limitations, but a drought like this, it takes that into a 1-year perspective. And now instead of looking at different regions across the state, you're just going to be looking at different age deer. But I'll stress good habitat management and keeping that herd healthy, keeping those numbers below carrying capacity will help mask that. It'll improve it.
William McKinley, when we come back, we'll get you back in the next couple of weeks. I want to get an update on CWD zones, testing, what that has led to, and some conclusions so far. What hunters can do to assist you guys. We'll get into all that, because that CWD continues to be an incredibly important conversation in this state. It really is an important conversation in the whitetail deer community for the entire United States. And we'll talk about the one element we have to fight it, and that's containment. And we'll get an update on all that. But we're out of time for today. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend.
You too, Ricky. Enjoyed it.
You bet. This has been William McKinley, head of the deer program for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Have a great week. Stay safe when you're in the outdoors, and God bless you. We'll see you next week.